I've had so many people asking me, Chris, which is the best pension account to open? So I've listened, and here are the best SIPPs or self-invested personal pensions for the 2024-2025 tax year. Let me preface this by saying that I've excluded most of the crap providers that will rip you off with extortionate fees. If you don't see someone here, chances are they're probably ripping you off, or they're just not really popular enough to talk about. Picking the right SIPP is a big decision to make, and it's super important you get it right depending on your needs. If someone is missing from this comparison, just use this as a benchmark to compare them to. I've even made this completely downloadable for you to look at later, and there's a link below. Here's the providers I've included in this guide. We've got Hargreaves Lansdown, Interactive Investor, Invest Engine, Fidelity, AJ Bell, Vanguard, Halifax, and Freetrade. Let's not waste any time and jump straight in. Before we do, if you could press that tiny little like button, as these do take a redonkulous amount of time to make, and it lets me know that it's helpful and worth making more of them. Okay, so first let's kick off with the platform fees, which is a fee you'll pay to use the platform. Hargreaves Lansdown charges 0.45% to use the platform. If you have funds, this fee scales once you pass 250,000, or if you can stick to exchange traded funds like I would recommend, or stocks, that fee is capped at £200 for the year, which works out at £16.66 per month. Interactive Investor is a bit more complicated. £5.99 if you're under 50k, then you are moved to the £12.99 plan. If you have an ISA, you can add it for £5. Then if you go over 75,000 across your accounts, you're moved on to the Investor Plus SIPP for £21.99 per month. It's one of the most complex pricing plans in this comparison. To keep it simple, let's just presume you'll be using the £12.99 Pension Builder plan. Invest Engine Next have recently launched their SIPP this year, and they've come in very competitively. I actually suggested to them that they should undercut Vanguard's SIPP, and they've done so, which is pretty awesome to see them take that feedback on board. Their SIPP has a management charge of 0.15%, and this is capped at a maximum of £200 per year, or £16.66 per month, which is similar to HL. What this means if we go off the platform fee alone, if you have under £133,333 invested, Invest Engine will be cheaper until this point, and then it will be the same cost as HL. Fidelity charges a 0.35% management fee if you have a regular savings plan, or a flat fee of £7.50 if you don't. This management fee drops to 0.2% if you hold over £250,000 in your SIPP. It's worth mentioning if you hold exchange traded funds, this portion of the fee is capped at £7.50 per month. So if you're using this platform, it's probably worth sticking with ETFs. AJ Bell, similar to Hargreaves, have two separate charges, one for funds and one for ETFs and shares. For funds, you pay 0.25% on the first 250k, then 0.1% on up to 500k, then nothing after that. That 0.25% works out to be £625 per year, or £52 per month, so it's quite an expensive charge to funds, and it's why I don't recommend them. You're much better off with ETFs on there, a 0.25% charge again, but this time it's capped at a maximum of £10 per month, which is far more affordable. Vanguard is similar to Invest Engine, charging 0.15%, but their fee is capped much higher at £375 for the year rather than £200. This works out then at £31.25 per month when you hit that cap, which is when you hit a balance of £250,000. It's good to keep in mind that although you may be a far way away from 250k now, in the future you may hit it and be annoyed that you lose that historical data if you have to switch providers. So it can be worth getting the provider right now so you don't need to switch later. If you want more of a typical bank, Halifax are actually quite a good option that I've included this year. The SIPP is administrated by AJ Bell, which is quite interesting. Their fee for the SIPP is £22.50 per quarter under 50k, or £45 per quarter over 50,000. To keep this in line with the others, it works out to be either £7.50 per month or £15 per month. And last but not least is Freetrade. They charge a flat fee of £11.99 per month, which is included in their Plus plan. This has actually increased since last year's comparison, where it was £9.99. On platform fee alone, the winner here would have to be Invest Engine or AJ Bell, depending on how much you have in your portfolio. Alongside the platform fee, the other big consideration is how much it actually costs you to buy and sell on the platform, as that can really stack up. A low management fee is no good if it costs you a lot each month to buy. Now I'm going to do something a little bit different here and show you both, so you'll see the buying fee and the fee to set up regular investing, because it can save you a fortune and it's important to highlight. Hargreaves Lansdown has the most expensive buying fee. It's £11.95 per deal, and it gets cheaper if you do more than 10 per month, but hopefully nobody's doing that. What they have done this year is slash their regular investing fee to $0. So you can buy once and then set up a regular direct debit from £25 per month and you pay $0 each time you trade. So you can now lower the amount you pay for the platform massively. Interactive Investor have also lowered their cost this year to $3.99 from $5.99, making them super competitive. And again, you can take advantage of the free regular investor service, which can make your monthly trading fee $0. InvestEngine charge you $0 to buy on the platform, as well as $0 for regular investing, so it's ridiculously low cost. Fidelity charges £7.50 per trade, or it's £1.50 per trade if you're using their regular investor service. If you want to place a trade over the phone, it's a whopping £30 for doing so, so watch out for that. AJ Bell have lowered their costs this year. For funds, it's £1.50 per deal, and shares, which you're probably going to buy because that includes ETFs, it's £5 per trade. They also have a regular investor service, which charges you £1.50 per deal to lower that cost. You'll notice a theme forming here, with regular investing being much cheaper. You just have to consider if you know the set amount you're going to invest each month. Fiddling with the direct debit amount can be a bit of a pain, and you may have to pay more if you just want to add more in one lump sum outside of that regular payment. Vanguard doesn't charge you for buying or regular investing, which is great. The only charge they do have is if you want to place a live trade, which is £7.50. Most people won't need this whatsoever, can just place an order and let Vanguard deal with it. Halifax is a bit bizarre. They offer a reduced charge on specific dates between the times of 12:15 and 2:15 of £3.50. I mean, who came up with that one? If you're outside of this, which let's face it, you probably will be, it's £9.50 per trade. One benefit though is they do have a free regular investing service, which I highly recommend you going for if you use Halifax to save on costs. And free trade, of course, charges you $0 to buy within your SIPP, hence the name free trade. The winners here would have to be either InvestEngine, Vanguard, or Freetrade. I feel like although some of the others do have free regular investing, not having to pay when you want to just buy as a one-off is much better. Now, if this feels a little bit overwhelming to work out, don't worry, because later I'll compare these with example portfolios to show you the total cost of each platform, so stick around for that. Now, next up is an important one, and this is the foreign exchange fee. This is a fee you'll pay when you trade in another currency. So for example, if you bought Apple stock, it would be priced in dollars. So we pay a currency conversion fee, like we would pay a fee to convert our money if we were going on holiday. HL charge 1%, which scales as you spend more. Interactive Investors is 1.5% and reduces as you spend more too. InvestEngine don't have an FX fee, as it currently only has ETFs which are listed in pounds. Fidelity's fee is somewhat cheaper than HL and II at 0.75%, which again gets cheaper as you spend more. And AJ Bell's is the same at 0.75%. Vanguard, like InvestEngine, doesn't have an FX fee, and Halifax is pretty expensive at 1.25%, and Freetrade's differs depending on the type of account you have, but with a Plus account it's 0.39%. If some of these fees look expensive, don't worry. For 90% of investors, we can ignore this fee, as we'll be buying UK listed ETFs and buying in pounds. The only people it will really affect is those who want to buy international stocks. I think it would be unfair for me to select a winner here because it depends on the way you trade. If you were buying international stocks, Freetrade SIPP will be the cheapest, or if you stick with shares and funds in pounds, none of the providers will charge you. Next up, let's talk about what's on the platform, because it's pretty important you can actually buy what you want on there. HL have over 8,000 shares and 3,000 funds. ETFs are mostly classed as shares on these platforms because they are traded like stocks. Interactive Investor has a huge selection at over 40,000, which is stocks and funds combined. Sometimes the platforms don't give specific numbers on each. InvestEngine has over 620 ETFs as of today and is adding more all the time. No shares, as they are an ETF only platform. Fidelity unfortunately doesn't give an exact number, they just class it as thousands. AJ Bell is also a little bit vague on the numbers, but it does say they cover the majority of the UK market, 24 international markets plus 2,000 funds, so I don't think you'll have a problem there. Vanguard has all of the Vanguard funds. Unfortunately, they only let you trade in Vanguard funds, which is a drawback of the platform, but it's fine if you only want the Vanguard funds, which are very good. Halifax numbers are a little bit loose, but since their service goes through AJ Bell, we can presume the numbers will be the same. Freetrade has over 6,100 stocks and ETFs, which is all rolled up into one number, and they don't offer mutual funds. Here, I would say the winner, if we go purely off the range available, would be Interactive Investor. Although I wouldn't worry with any of these options if you're a passive ETF investor, they all have plenty of good options on the platform. platform. A really important feature to think about is whether you can pay into your pension from a limited company. If you own a limited company or want employer contributions to your SIPP, this one could be really important. All of the providers offer this facility except for Freetrade and InvestEngine. InvestEngine's SIPP is fairly new and they plan to have it added shortly. By the time you watch this video, it may actually be added, so it's worth double checking. Next up is something you may find really frustrating if they don't have it, and that's whether the provider has a desktop version and a mobile app. I know some people are really big on having an app, and others hate the fact the providers don't have a desktop version. Here's all of the providers who have a desktop version. The only exception here is Freetrade, who technically does have one, but it's been in beta for ages and it's pretty rubbish. Here's the ones that have a mobile version. The only exception here is Vanguard, who is actually apparently finally launching soon. We've been waiting for ages and some people have actually been given early access to test it. Unfortunately, I haven't been quite so lucky yet. The US app is very good, so I'm excited to see that soon. I will also mention here as a side note, Halifax's app is pretty much what you would expect from a bank designing an investing app. It works, but it's not the best. Now let's talk about how safe your money is, because I think this is something pretty damn important when it comes to your pension. You'll be pleased to know that all of the providers here are regulated by the FCA and they're covered by the Financial Services Compensation Scheme of up to £85,000. I wouldn't include any provider who isn't. Another important factor can be the company age. Here are the ages of all of the companies. The more established providers have been going for around 40 years. Halifax, I've gone off the age of AJ Bell as that's who's providing their SIPP service. If we wanted to be really precise, Halifax is owned by Lloyds, who were founded in 1765. Crazy. Freetrade and InvestEngine are our newcomers to the space, with their low-cost offerings, both over 7 and 8 years old respectively. Now, something I always like to look at are the Trustpilot reviews. What are people actually saying about the company? Now, I always say take this with a pinch of salt, because it does depend on how vested the company is in using Trustpilot, but I still think it's a good metric nonetheless. HL has a score of 4.2 with nearly 10,000 reviews. Interactive Investor has a huge 24,000 and maintained an impressive score of 4.7. InvestEngine this year has increased their score nicely to 4.6 with over 1,000 reviews, which is nice for an app of their age. Fidelity's is 4.2 with 4,600 reviews. AJ Bell tips the highest score just with 4.8 with 5,500 reviews. Vanguard also has a 4.2 score approaching 5,000 reviews. Halifax, yeah, 1.5 score with 4,400 reviews. Although this is more just a reflection that it's a bank and banks have terrible reviews in general. It's up to you whether you look at this score or perhaps look at AJ Bell's, as they're the ones that are offering the service for them. But likely you wouldn't be getting AJ Bell's customer support. And last but not least is Freetrade with the second lowest score on the list at 4 with nearly 3,900 reviews. Next up is support. This is something that can be really important that people want to know. Here's the providers that offer phone support. I always debate about this though, because personally I prefer ticket-based support to get to the right person quickly, but these are the ones that have it if you need it. All of them offer ticket-based support and a couple also offer live chat. Although I will say here, even though some like Freetrade say they've got a live chat, I've never managed to speak to anyone on the chat and it just redirects me to the email, so be aware of that. If you're looking to see whether you can transfer your pension in or out, I would highly recommend double checking with any of these providers for costs you may incur. From my research, all of these will allow you to do it. The only two catches are a couple of them won't do in situ transfers, which means you have to sell your investments before you move them across. Some providers also have fees if you want to transfer out US stocks. Freetrade, for example, charge £17 per US share. I would also say the same is true for my next point, which is drawdown. Drawdown is a process of taking money out of your pension, which won't be applicable to everyone. Here's the providers that offer it. There's a couple that don't, namely InvestEngine and Freetrade, because of how they're designed, at least for now. They're designed to be accumulation pensions rather than drawdown ones. This may of course change in the future. Typically cheaper providers won't offer this, as in my opinion it's more work for them to do. Now, most of these are free. Halifax actually has some annual charges in there of £180 or £300 per year, which I don't like. AJ Bell also has a couple of charges that I found. But the trouble is, these fees are way too complex for me to cover here and depend if you go into things like a cap drawdown or a flexible drawdown, so I'd recommend checking checking with the provider directly if that feature is important for any hidden fees. But I think the majority of these providers would be fine. Next up is multi-accounting, and by this I mean whether you can have your other accounts open with the same provider. For some people this is really important. It's certainly nice to have. Thankfully, all of the providers on this list also offer an ISA, so you could have your ISA and SIPP in one place. If you want to include your lifetime ISA, your options at AJ Bell or Hargreaves Lansdown. To go one step further, if you want to also include a junior ISA, your options at AJ Bell, Fidelity, HL, Interactive Investor, Vanguard and Halifax. I think the main ones people focus on are the ISA and SIPP, so you should be fine with any of these. Now let's talk about bonuses when you sign up to these platforms, as I think it's always nice to get something when you sign up. For ease, I've put a link to each of these in the description down below. A lot of the providers annoyingly don't offer one. I've tried to ask them for as much as I can get. Freetrade will give you a free share when you sign up. Interactive Investor has a cashback offer of up to £200, which is pretty nice. And Invest Engine will give you up to a £50 welcome bonus when you sign up. Do check these out though, as they do change. I do my best to keep them up to date in the description. And just a side note, some of them are exclusive that they've given me, so if you don't go through the links, you may not qualify for that bonus, so just double check when you go through it. Next is the important part, where I'm going to make this way easier, because when you look at these fees for the accounts, it highly depends on your portfolio size and how you plan to invest. So I've worked this out for you. Let's assume you're going to buy one ETF every month and make one simple payment into your global index fund, which is what I recommend 99% of people should be doing. And don't worry, I've put a link down below so you can download this, so don't worry if you want to see it in more detail. So here are the providers that we've mentioned, and here is how much it will cost you in a year for your buying costs. Some of these, like HL, Interactive Investor and Halifax, are going to be free to buy more each month if you use the regular investor service. So you've got the one cost and then it's free. But it's also worth bearing in mind that in a year 2 it will be free, as you don't need to buy it the first time. You've then got it closely followed with Fidelity and AJ Bell, who both charge £1.50 per month to buy. And then of course you've got Invest Engine, Vanguard and Freetrade, which don't charge you. Now I will say here, I do like having no fee, because if I do want to add more outside of my regular direct debit, I don't want to have to pay an expensive trading fee in some cases. If we sort them and went solely off that fee alone, this is who would be the cheapest at the top, down to the most expensive. But this isn't the only comparison we need to make, because we also need to add in the management fees for the platform. Now across the top here are some different size portfolios. If some of these numbers look a bit strange, don't worry. It's because these are the points certain providers cap their fees at. First, HL is going to charge you 0.45% until you hit the £44,444. There it reaches the £200 cap, and that's the fee you will pay beyond that. Interactive Investor has a flat fee of £71.88 until you hit 50k, and then it continues at a flat rate of £155.88. Invest Engine is 0.15% and doesn't reach its £200 cap until £133,333. We'll go off Fidelity's flat fee of £7.50 for ETFs each month, £90 per year all the way through. It's one of the most expensive to start, but it does get cheaper later. It's worth noting here that this is on ETFs only. You will be charged more if you go outside of this. AJ Bell is 0.25% until you hit 50k, and then it's £1.20 from there. Vanguard is probably the cheapest to start, along with Invest Engine, but it does become the most expensive. Its fees cap at £375, but that's not until your portfolio reaches £250,000. You'll notice that the portfolio figures stop here, because this column is the highest you'll pay on any portfolio over this value with these providers. Halifax has a flat fee of £90 per year until 25k, and then 180 after that. And Freetrade is straight in with a flat fee of $11.99 or £143.88 for the year, and that's the most they will ever charge you. With these, honestly, I wouldn't worry too much about saving money in the short term. Even Freetrade's £11.99 per month isn't horrendous. It's much better to work out the maximum charge for each provider. So if we do that, here is what we're left with. Vanguard is the most expensive, and Fidelity is the cheapest. But we also need to add in our buying costs, presuming we are buying that one ETF per month, and here is what we get. Then we can divide that number and get get a maximum monthly costs. Now, to be honest with you here, and why I wanted to show you this, is none of these providers are particularly bad. In fact, really, I've cut out all of the crap pension providers that will charge you extortionate fees and higher percentages anyway, so all of these are pretty good. The fact that Vanguard are the most expensive and they are really good is crazy. Paying at £20 per month for your SIPP is really nothing, and you'll even save on that beforehand with some of these scaling fees. For example, on InvestEngine or Vanguard, you're paying £15 per year on a £10,000 portfolio. That's £1.25 per month. So where do you go from here? Well, let me put these into a tier list for you to make things easier. For those of you unfamiliar with this, S is the best and E is the worst. But bear in mind, even the worst here isn't that bad at all compared to some of the horrors out there. Starting at the bottom, I'll put Freetrade in the E tier. It's a decent platform, but lacking a desktop version. It's got poor customer support and high fees in comparison to others off the bat. In D, I would put Halifax. Although their flat fees are nice and cheap, the app itself isn't great. It's perhaps okay if you're a Halifax customer, but I prefer a more put together app designed specifically for investing. I also don't like the fact they have big fees for Drawdown. They actually increase the fee to £300 once you're over 75, which I think's a bit mean. The only thing that does tip them over Freetrade is that they do have more features. C tier, I'm going to put Fidelity. I love the website, but I'm not a huge fan of the investing platform itself. I really like their flat fee structure of just £90, but I wouldn't personally use them. I also don't love that the £7.50 cap is only on ETFs. I think people could easily fall outside of this. Now, this is where it gets really hard. If I do this logically, there's two separate groups here. First, we've got AJ Bell, Interactive Investor, and HL. If we go purely off the fees alone, AJ Bell has to be above HL because it also lets you have all of the accounts in one place, and now they've reduced their trading fee to £5, it's actually cheaper despite regular investing being more expensive. AJ Bell also beats Interactive Investors based on fees alone. Although if you do have multiple accounts and combine them into one like an ISA, Interactive Investor does have that advantage. There's so many pros and cons between the both of them, it's almost impossible to decide between them. So I'll put them both in the A tier and HL below in the B tier. The other camp is Vanguard and InvestEngine. This one is really tricky too, because InvestEngine is cheaper than Vanguard, and Vanguard works out to be the most expensive. I'll have to put Vanguard in the B tier and InvestEngine in the A tier. Now the S tier, you might notice I've left it blank. This is because I would really say it depends. Because if you want certain features like contributing from a company, and that's important to you, certain providers may go higher. If you have a large portfolio and need a flat fee or need drawdown, it will also depend. So who would I use and who am I using? Well, I'm currently still using Vanguard. That's the one I started my 0 to 100k series with, and it's where I've got all of my historical data. But if I had to start again, I would likely change. I'll be honest, and this may sound a bit picky, but I don't like AJ Bell or Interactive Investors app. This may be because I'm a web designer, but I don't really like the interface. It kind of puts me off, which it shouldn't and doesn't really matter, but that's just me. Hargreaves is okay, but it's a bit clunky to do certain things. Regular investing is a complete pain to set up. If you need a drawdown facility though, unfortunately there's not much choice. You'll need to use one of them for now or pay higher fees and go with Vanguard. I am a huge fan, honestly, of InvestEngine SIPP, but at the moment I need company contributions, so I need InvestEngine to add that functionality, which should be coming soon. Or depending on when you're watching this, it may have been added. The reason I'm a huge advocate is just the interface of how easy it is to use and the fact I can see what individual stocks I own and how much I have in each of them when I just buy one fund, which I love. I also have my ISA there, so if I could have my SIPP and ISA in one place, that would be huge for me. I think for anyone that's in the accumulation phase, just starting out a pension, InvestEngine is a no-brainer, but I understand some people have more complex requirements. I also really like that there's no charge to buy, as often I like to throw extra cash in there when I can. I will keep you guys updated when I do switch, as well as doing regular portfolio updates. So if you aren't already, make sure you subscribe and you can follow me on that journey. A quick note here too is don't worry too much about this. You can have multiple SIPPs open, so don't stress too much about picking the wrong provider. You can open a couple and see who you like the best. Let me know if you have any questions, and if you're also looking for the best ISA, you can check out this comparison right here, where I spent over 100 hours putting together the most detailed comparison I could. If you've already got one, you may also want to check out some of the best Vanguard index funds you can buy in your SIPP. Hopefully this was helpful, and I will see you guys over there.